Morning, folks. Are you a terrorist? Is today's question. Are you a domestic extremist? Well, if you don't like what the government's saying or doing, and it looks like that's what you're going to be labelled as. If you criticise the government, if you talk to your friends about politics, you're going to be labelled an extremist. The question was asked on the BBC just now, how can we stop these terrorist attacks? Well, maybe if we stop blowing the shit out of the Middle East on behalf of the Americans, maybe if we stop murdering people in the streets. Now, I'm not any way, shape or form decrying what's happened at the weekend again. In fact, my brother-in-law was caught up in it. What I am saying is that the problems are being caused by foreign policy. We're getting involved in illegal wars abroad that we've got nothing to do with us, and it's about projection of power. You've heard Theresa May not long ago talking about soft power, and this is part of it, but soft power doesn't include blowing people up with drones illegally with no go ahead from Parliament about SAS units and special boat service units in Libya and Syria, when the government's turned around and said, well, we got no boots on the ground. Well, you're liars. The photographs in the mainstream newspapers, but we got no boots on the ground. Excuse me. Then you got Saudi Arabia funding the building of mosques in this country. They build a mosque for nothing, but then their extremist Wahhabi preachers, that's the condition of building the mosque, is that these extremist Saudi Muslims come over and preach hate in the mosques over here. So yeah, there are ways to sort this problem out, and the sooner people wake up and realise that most of this is caused by foreign policy, by the neocons trying to control the Middle East, prop up the petrodollar, keep the system going, as it has done since 1973 at least, but prop up Western power, and yet it's the last gasp. They can't see that the BRICS nations, China, Brazil, Russia, power's moving east, and it's leaving America behind, and that's purely because China, etc., are following the British model. The British model of the empire wasn't to conquer by violence, although a certain amount of violence was done. Obviously, every empire metes out violence when it feels necessary, which is why we're still doing it now. But the Chinese model of building an empire is through trade. They own the Brent oil field in the North Sea. They're building nuclear power stations here at Hinkley Point, and it's a last gasp attempt. And Theresa May saying she wants to clamp down on the internet and all this. Well, that I think is a front. They want the encryption keys for private communications, because they don't want anybody to have any kind of privacy whatsoever. But the bigger picture is that they want the encryption keys because things like Bitcoin and that rely on encryption, and once they can break that, then the banks have got no hold. The banks are crapping themselves about cryptocurrencies, but I don't know why they're worried, to be honest, because they're on their last legs anyway. But cryptocurrencies do rely on encryption, and once the government's got the keys to the encryption for cryptocurrencies, then they can control that cryptocurrency. And the whole point of the financial system at the moment, the reason why it's collapsing, the reason why we keep having these collapses, is because the the money's centralised, and the people running it are so corrupt. You know, all these dodgy loans and fake mortgages and stealing people's houses, and you can't do that with cryptocurrencies because you can't control it. You can't create a fictitious loan and secure it on somebody's house by forging their signature, which is what banks have been doing a lot of the time, and then stealing their house. You can't do it. And the banks are crapping themselves. Some German banker, or banker should we say, came out last week saying, oh, you shouldn't use cryptocurrencies because there's no centralised control. Well, I think that's the best advert for cryptocurrencies you can get. Nobody can fiddle it. It's totally secure, and they're not in the control of the bankers. So there you go. So now I'm promoting cryptocurrencies and the like. So am I now a domestic terrorist? I would hope not. I would consider myself a patriot. Mind you, in certain places that would be considered terrorism as well, especially by a lot of snowflakes on the left who think if you're not completely liberal and cuckold to any kind of liberal values, then you must be a terrorist, obviously. You know, don't believe in feminism because feminism's anti-man. And that kind of stuff. You just think, well, obviously we don't toe the party line, therefore you must be a terrorist. Anyway, I'm beginning to ramble now, so I'm going to go, and I might do another one later, possibly. Anyway, TTFN.